Yes, it's school. It's school.
It's
And it feels like that as well. It feels like there is high school drama.
Welcome to the Babel Bureau, where European language policy gets decoded, debated, and sometimes lost in translation. I'm Dr. Alicia Pfeiffer, your guide through the maze of multilingualism, from the winding corridors of Brussels to the talk of European towns. Here we unpack the politics of language, the clashes, the compromises, and the curious stories that shape how 500 million Europeans talk, and sometimes misunderstand each other. Because when it comes to language in Europe, we have laws for that. The Babel Bureau is co-founded by the European Union. The views expressed are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the EU or the European Education and Culture Executive Agency. In today's episode, Heremaia will dive deep into the integration program for migrants in Finland. Heremaia is about to complete the program, which is funded by taxpayers. And it's not just an intense language course for newcomers. The official name is labor market training. In today's episode, Hermaya will answer a very important question. Is knowing the language the key to migrant integration? Keep listening to find out the answer.
It's an absolutely amazing program. It's not without its limits, kind of thing. But I will definitely say that I found that the integration program will have radically different outcomes for people based on your kind of skills, mindset, goals, intentions, and the way that you kind of, for argument's sake, play the game, I guess. And so, yeah, I would arguably say that there's a right and a wrong way to kind of go through your integration course here, and choosing these kind of ways will have, as I said before, radically different outcomes.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that.
Of course.
But I think that, the people who will listen, they do not necessarily know much about the integration program itself.
Yeah.
So if we could start by going through, how do you actually get enrolled in the program, and what are you supposed to expect from it?
So for the most bit, there's no universal answer as to how you can get on the program here, whether or not you qualify. It is literally at the discretion of the city. So the best thing you can do is kind of go and take an appointment with your kind of employment area, with your municipality, and talk to, everyone's kind of entitled to having a meeting with a case manager, with employment services, and they'll tell you whether or not you can get in. So yeah, I think for that most bit, if you are registered as an unemployed person and you are not Finnish, then you can absolutely kind of try and apply for that program. I've had anecdotal experiences from friends who have told me that they weren't able to get onto any programs because they had a small business and they were operating here, and that the nature of their kind of their visa, because they were an entrepreneur, kind of disqualified them from accessing these services here, and I think that's tough.
Right, and the very objective of the integration program is to actually increase employability.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about the integration program is that a lot of people think it's just a Finnish language course. The real name of the course is, or the real name of the entire program is labor market training. Labor market training effectively means that they are training you to be ready for the workforce, the labor market. And the vehicle of which they choose for the most part is the Finnish language integration program. So for many people, they believe that they are simply there just to learn the Finnish language, when in reality, you're there to build the skills, knowledge, expertise, and networks required to generate yourself the opportunity for whatever you're looking for, be that a job, be that self-employment, be that further education or something else. The whole point is that it is a stepping stone to kind of get somewhere. With that in mind, though, I do find empathy for people who are in, for example, self-employment, who still want to learn the language, but they're just not offered the same type of opportunities that someone who would be unemployed in this case would be. But I can understand it's almost a clash of incentives. I can understand the municipality has certain budgets as well, and so perhaps it's just a topic of discussion to see if we can find a way to ultimately kind of support people who are at different levels on the journey, but still want access to it's knowledge they're looking for. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for the same levels of opportunities.
Yeah, and in a way, there's certainly this loophole what to do with people who have jobs and I don't know, who might be able to do that job in English. Right? There's quite a lot of companies, especially in the tech industry, that, you know, they're willing to just switch the entire language of the company to English if it means that they are able to recruit the right people. And, you know, there's a lot of like pretty rare expertise that you need to run these companies. So okay, in a way it is a little bit different, but you know, sometimes you might have your English language job, then something happens and you need to find a new job, and then you find yourself, you know, after several years in the country but without the language or access to the language training. Because I think there is, or at least in the past it used to be that to get to the integration program, there was some kind of time limit.
There was 3 years. And
if you were in the country already for some time, they expected you to, you know, do that effort on your own.
Yes.
Right.
And so, and I think, and because I fell into the trap as well, for all intents and purposes, I moved here in May of 2023. You know, my wife at the time there was Finnish, so that's why we moved, and I worked for a startup in Tampere for 18 months. But ultimately things didn't work out. I got laid off. That's fine. But then when I went to the integration kind of specialist here, luckily I was under the 3-year time mark. And so they said, yep, you can set up. And all you need to do is actually just head in for one time before 3 years, set up just tell them that you want to activate it. And then you have a 2-year period of kind of activation in which you can use these services. I think I've heard many stories for people where they will come, for example, on a student visa. They will undertake a 3-year degree. Or 3.5 years, and by the end of their degree they finally go to the employment services offices only to be told that they waited too long, and for the most part they didn't know. And I think for the most bit, one of the things I find with Finland, especially when it comes to employment services here, or at least kind of what your opportunities are, you have to be proactive. You can't wait. This is not a game that you win by yourself. This is a game that is won through community, and by isolating yourself, in my case here, I isolated myself because I felt that I had enough skills, knowledge, and expertise with my background from a foreign country, being in technology sales, and I felt that I knew everything, and that was not the truth. And I paid the price because of it, but when I came to the new town in Joensuu, I said, well, let's make better choices, and I did. And because of that, you know, I've had vastly better outcomes.
Okay, wonderful. So now let's talk about, you know, the specifics of the integration program, because this is basically intense training, right? You have, well, I mean,
most intense we can get in the country.
I think we can, of course, define intense in many different ways, but the training takes place every day for a couple hours. So in a way, there's really not that much space for full-time work. Or
yes, yes. How would I put it there? So for me, so roughly your contact hours with the school is 25 hours a week, 5 hours a day. On top of that, you have around 90 minutes of homework. The mandatory, I tend not to do it as much here as I should, but for the most bit, I like to say it's 25 hours a week, a little bit of homework here and there. But in the way that I tell it to my friends, I was like, look, it's 25 hours. Full-time job is 40. So for me, I find that you are given I would say that it's difficult to do with like a full-time job unless you work like a night shift job or something like that. But if you can, because you get a little bit of benefits from the government, you get Keller money. And then what that means is that you're given enough money to pay your rent, pay your groceries, not starve to death. Like, it's not pretty, but like, you'll get by. And for the most bit, I think that if you can humble yourself enough to kind of know that you're probably going to be starting again, to kind of undertake the course and really take it, understand that you have to start from zero, and that's okay, because you can build very quickly in a very short amount of time. I think too many people make the mistake of believing that even for me, I made that mistake that I had too much of an ego. You know, I came off the back of a very lucrative job when we moved to Finland here, and I didn't have that job anymore. I didn't have that income. I didn't have that title, and I didn't want to lose that. And because of that, I kind of buried my head in the sand. I tried to go down find a highly qualified, skilled job in the tech space here. And I did, but like, things didn't work out. And then ultimately, what I found is that if you don't learn the language or go through the integration process, you are living on borrowed time. And what I mean by that is, as you were saying before, if you get fired, you'll find yourself deep in the market where it's not the same job market as it was a couple of years ago. It's not as easy to get a job. The same skill sets that you have may not be as competitive, and especially because you don't speak the language and you've been here for a longer time, the expectation is eventually you would have at least taken some side classes or something like that there. And so many people can find themselves in a very dire situation because they waited too long to activate these services. I think for me, the way that I see the integration program is it's a necessary step, and it's very humbling to kind of take an entire year to go from kind of highly qualified individual, highly educated, to going back to school. This was my first time back in 10 years of going to school. And for me, as a person who kind of had an entrepreneur background that was used to kind of always working, it was a big shock. It was a shock to my system at first, and it was very humbling, and it was very much like I felt like I had taken an enormous amount of steps backwards. But after about a month, when I really started to see how the gears were turning and how the course looks, I realized actually that it's an incredible opportunity for kind of redefining yourself, whether it's you want to break into a new industry, you want to kind of go through a bit of a kind of like a reconstruction process here, or a rebirth process. And when I figured that out and I kind of saw how everything aligned, it was very much kind of like foot on the gas, and I haven't taken it off yet, and it's been an incredible journey so far.
Exciting. And I mean, we talked about your experience already once, and you're someone who actually has a lot of good things to say about the integration program. Over the years, I've heard many different opinions, but like, you're being critical. You know, it's not necessarily easy to just go back to school, because that's what it is. It's like school.
Yes, it's school. It's school. And it feels like that as well. It feels like there is high school drama, like with people that were the average age is 35, I think. So yes, you'd think so, but nope, it is. Yes.
Okay. So let's go back now to the topic of, I don't want to really say success, because the outcomes of the programs are very different. Some people feel like, you know, it was a waste of time, and then others feel like it was a wonderful opportunity.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So that's a wonderful question, and I think the easiest way to put it, it comes down to the goals, intentions, and mindset of the individuals when they take the course. And for me, what I found is that the success factors for the integration course very much come down to there's so much of the course where success is depending on what you do outside of the course. I would say that success is not defined by what happens within the walls of the classroom. It's what happens outside during that spare time. You can study. I have many friends who only focused on studying. So they came in, they did their 5 hours of study, they did their homework, they did extra, and all they did was learn Finnish. And they found very quickly that they became very proficient in Finnish, but they didn't have many opportunities for themselves. And the reason I say that is because in the job market, you're up against Finns who have been here for their entire life. They're fluent in Finnish. They were born here. If they are struggling in the market, the answer is not learning Finnish. A lot of people think that the difference between them and a job, because they have background experience from their home country, is just having enough. Is just having a bit of Finnish. No, absolutely not. In my opinion, I have a phrase I like to use when talking about opportunities in Finland, and that phrase is, it's what you grow and who you know. And the explanation of it is, when I say it's what you grow, you have to think of it like planting a seed. You have to plant it where you stand. I know too many people that have a background in IT, for example, and they come to Finland, they say, well, I've worked in IT for a long time, and so I don't need to reprove my skills. I've got this experience here. And so because of that, they don't have any local relevant expertise, and they find themselves out-competed in the market because their skills, knowledge, and expertise aren't taken as credibly as someone who has homegrown knowledge. An example of that for me was that in 2019, 2020, I was on the board of Australia's largest public speaking club. We had built it up, and we built it into Australia's largest over a 2-year period. I took that model, I brought it here, and I rebuilt it. The entire point was I'd already done that in the past. I didn't need to prove it again. But by doing it here, it showed that I was capable of, not only my skills were still timely and relevant, it was culturally aware. I could do it in a Finnish market, and I could do it in a market that had 60 times less people. Joensuu has 80,000 people. Melbourne, Australia had 5 million. So for that example kind of thing here, it just shows that my skills, knowledge, and expertise from overseas are relevant in Finland right now, and I can show that with a kind of a showcased kind of experience. And so, yeah, just going back to that kind of success, it's very much comes down to you need to showcase what your whatever your end goal is, you need to be working towards it from day one. And I don't mean that you need to learn Finnish. I mean that you need to build those skills, knowledge, expertise, and networks from the get-go over that entire year period. So by the time that you graduate out, you have been building a portfolio, you've been building a network, you are becoming known in your industry, and then along that course of whether you do it through, for example, we have 2 internships, 2 harjoittelus. We have a 3-week one and a 6-week one in the second course. A very common way is you can do the placement method, where you do your placement at your chosen workforce that you want to go to first, and then you get a return offer to come back a second time, and then maybe you get a job offer. That's a very common course. Or for me, you could just build the opportunities up, and then you could just do the kind of free speaking engagements or free portfolio building, where you just do projects for local companies and such. You build enough portfolio, you network enough, and by the end you can either find a job or find self-employment. So that doesn't happen if you just study.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you next about the different tools that are available during the program that can help you to get these extra things on top of just learning the language. And you've mentioned the compulsory internships, right?
Yes,
the
yes.
2 internships.
Yes.
Okay, is there any other support that you get?
Yes, there is support there. The way I like to put it is the city will support you as much as you support the city. I'll give you a really good example. When it comes to building community and networks in Finland, the number one rule I say about building community is if you want to start building a good community, start by being a good community member. And what that means is showing up to other people's events, helping other people out, knowing people in the community. Like for me, I started attending it took about 2 months of me going to all of these different events and communities and services around the city to really understand what they do, what they're for, if it's relevant for me, how can I help them. And so I was accessing all of the services just to kind of test them out. And I think everyone should do that. You should be going to every single service and every single community that you think you find relevant kind of thing here, and really seeing if it's right, what kind of services they offer. And you have to be the one. You can't rely on your schools just to tell them. They can't. Everyone is different. Like a person that wants to be a barber is different to a person that wants to be working in IT. They go to different skills, knowledge, expertise, different services, different communities. And so you cannot expect the school to have a complete portfolio and a complete matrix of every single community aspect or every single kind of bit of extra help that the city can offer. One of the bigger problems I find in the Finnish ecosystem is that a lot of information is fractured. For example, if you take the language cafe, so the language cafe model is very popular within Finland, where it's usually an RY, a not-for-profit association, or a municipality, or an institution such as a school, university, yliopisto, call it something else, will host a language cafe. But what you find is that if you really look into it, there's probably about anywhere between 4 to 8 language cafes that are running at any one time, and they all tend to cover the same topic and such, in which none of them talk to each other. And if anything, some of them feel like they're competing against each other. This is not a zero-sum game. This is not, if I have a language cafe and the church down the road has a language cafe, we need to compete for customers. This is not how that works. Everybody wins when we kind of combine our resources, especially if we're doing the same things. But you have to be proactive, 100%. You cannot be passive about, and I tell this, and I tell it so seriously, where I say that it is so critically important because it's your life. This is not like a degree in which you just get a certificate and then things go well. This is ultimately going to determine how the trajectory of your life will play out in Finland. And if you have moved here with your family and your kids for a better life, you need to take this seriously. You cannot be passive about it.
Shall we recap,
Yeah.
Ernest, what was said?
Sure.
Okay, so the integration training
Yes.
is not just language course, it's like labor market training.
Yes, labor market training.
Yeah, it's the opportunity or time where you basically feel like you're going back to school, but it's just so you can take a step back, regroup, and hopefully hop into the exciting world of employment and networks and opportunities.
Yep, I would say so. Yes.
Okay, but in a way to really take advantage of that program, you need to be proactive and don't just expect results, but, start from actually giving.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
From what we've covered, I think the gist of it is, like, for anyone kind of listening, take it seriously from day one. Have a very clear vision and goal of what you want. Start with the end in mind. If you want to work in IT, if you want to break into tech, don't play half-hearted.
Right, so that would be your advice
Absolutely.
to like the next generation of students in the integration course.
Yeah. Spend more time giving than asking. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting advice, because obviously many people get burnt out from looking for a job, and the endless frustration and facing rejections, like, can like really bring you down.
Yes.
And especially if you like keep asking and get nothing back, you don't really understand what.
Yeah. You have to wait the year. Like, you have to do the entire course. There is no shortcuts. You can't study for 4 months, get a job, and then take off, and then never have to learn Finnish again. There's no shortcuts around this. You have to be there for the entire year. And I know it hurts, and I know it sucks, and I've had stories from people, for example, where they had their kids, and, I had a friend who had had kids, and, obviously it gets a little bit hard, and I think one day they came home and they overheard daughter said, like, why doesn't daddy have a job? That's hard to hear, like, I think, like, as a father, kind of like as a man kind of thing, like, that's a very humbling experience, because it's like, well, that's a good question kind of thing, like, why doesn't he? And so I think for a lot of people, they are in this loop of kind of like trying to find a job and employment, and this discouragement there, because that they find that it's the only way out kind of thing here, and they feel they don't have enough time. They feel that, like, it's like, well, we can't survive. I need to have a job kind of thing. Many people haven't been outside of employment, and they don't know how to psychologically operate as an unemployed person kind of thing here. And I understand, and that is difficult. But for me, I like to say it's like don't you can't sit there in this kind of endless psychological loop of just trying to apply for jobs and getting rejected and feeling down about yourself. It's like you will have more. It's very counterintuitive, but you will have more effectiveness if you just sit there building community and networks and helping people for a larger period of time, and the opportunity will come to you.
Right. And I mean, you've mentioned something very interesting, and that is like, the gender stereotypes.
Yes.
Like the father, you always imagine as kind of like the one who provides for the family. And I guess like many cultures have this stereotype that it's the man's job to, bring in the money.
Yep.
And then also many children have the idea, like daddy knows everything, right? Like daddy will solve any problem. All right. So like, how can then men cope with this, challenge?
It took me getting laid off from a job to really fully understand, like, where I was. Like, that was the big one, where I got laid off, and it was such a shock to the system that I had to take a look back and realize that I was like, and there's this phrase in every immigrant's journey I like to call the resentment arc, where after the honeymoon phase that you've realized that, happiest country in the world, the realization phase kicks in where it's a little harder than you thought, and then the resentment arc kicks in when things are a lot worse than you thought. And it can become dark, and it become hard. And for a lot of people, especially men, we can get stuck in that phase. And I did for a very long time. But for me, it was enough of time to really realign and try to see what my passions were. I really got back into public speaking. But it was where I decided to really make a commitment to Finland. And so I was like, no, I'm going to stay here, give it my best shot, and do everything I can. And that's what it took for me. I had to go through it first. But for someone that's going through it now, I think the hard part is many people leave. Many leave. Like, it just becomes too difficult. A lot of the times it's the man will go home to get a job. Wife and kids will stay here just so that they can try and at least sort something out. And then they'll try and figure it out after that. So there's no easy answer for it. The whole point is that it is difficult. And if you are a man, that you have to kind of humble yourself to it kind of thing here. And you have to find a way to just process it and to say that it's okay, it's going to be humbling, you'll go back through school and you'll not have a job, and your skills, knowledge, and expertise probably won't be acknowledged. But you have to believe that kind of, in the long run, like giving back.
So great to hear that you were able to eventually overcome, the the hard feelings that surely, being in that situation is not easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, many people struggle today in Finland and in other countries. Not everyone is able to, return.
Yes,
return and just, like unpause
yes.
the life there. I mean, that's probably never really possible. But now, looking back at your experience, and you mentioned, like integration program is not perfect.
Yes.
So what kind of changes would you like to see?
I think there's enough resources, and I think the program is great. I think for me, there is a narrative change that needs to be made. My personal opinion is that there's an overemphasis on education, because I have way too many friends here with PhDs that have no jobs. Like, I have way too many friends that are kind of like highly educated and highly unemployed. And for the most bit there, we have this, in Finland, we have this belief that education is somehow like a remedy too. It's like, oh, you can't find a job, get another degree. That's not going to fix anything, kind of thing. But throughout the course, I watched this narrative play out multiple times, and I saw the outcomes that it led to. There is this script in which kind of, for the most bit, they're trying to kind of get you back into the education system. They're like, go to school. And for me personally, I just, there's nothing wrong with schooling, but it's just not for me, kind of thing. But the way that you're almost, like if you imagine kind of chickens walking into a factory and you're kind of guiding them in a certain way, kind of thing here, it almost felt like that. I had a moment in the course where I watched my friend, who was from a South Asian country, who has 10 years of banking experience. He just said, I'm going to go work I think I'm going to work in a daycare when I graduate. And I kind of look at him and I was like, but you worked in banking for 10 years. And they said, the teacher said that, it's hard to get into the industry for immigrants, like IT and banking. And so maybe I should try the daycare. And for me personally, there's nothing wrong with these jobs, but for me, I just feel that is not the narrative that we should be telling immigrants. There's an American term that was used in the 90s, and the American term is the soft bigotry of low expectations. And effectively what it was used for in that time was, it talked about the fact that disadvantaged people, in that specific case it was Hispanic and African Americans, were effectively told that to have lower expectations of them because they were from a disadvantaged background. We need to tell better stories in order to get better outcomes. We need to tell them, it's like, whatever you want to do, you have enough time. You have a year in the course. That is so much time to redefine yourself, to go through a career change, to build the skills, knowledge, expertise, and frameworks. And because I'm changing industries. I'm going from tech to public speaking.
Well, if I may actually say that, you come from a bit of a privileged background, meaning English-speaking country.
Absolutely.
So, you can manage in a lot of careers without really taking the trouble to learn another language.
Yes.
And what about your foreign language experience? Did you learn anything at school?
No. We were only taught English here. When it comes to language learning, and when it comes to being in Finland and through the integration program, this was my first time learning another language, and it's been very difficult, but it's been very humbling as well. I think one of the most key moments where I really felt that I was integrated was I went to a friend's house for Johannes. Their friends had invited me up to Lieksa for Johannes, and we went to their mökki, and we were sitting in the mökki, and then all of their family was there, and they're all Finnish, and we were all speaking Finnish, and I was speaking Finnish too. And I kind of, at that moment, I realized, I was like, this is kind of Finnish culture. I'm going to go back to the concept of privilege, because I think you have an absolute point. And I've had this discussion with friends as well. And it's a controversial opinion, I know, but for me, it's okay to set certain levels of accountability and standards for us. We're not children. I remember on the Friday before we started our internship, we would have this exercise in class where I out of kind of protest, I didn't participate, but in the exercise we talked about, so if you're late to work, what do you do? And it's like, you call your boss. And the kind of exercise that you would have if you were 14 years old doing your first summer job and you didn't know how to make a call and you still needed mum and dad's help, kind of thing. And it's like the average age in our class was mid-30s. immigrants, we are not a monolith. We are not the same. We are not all one type of person here, and we all have different reasons and levels. And I think that it should be acknowledged and examined, and we should kind of work with what we have, kind of thing here. And I think it goes back to the reason of, like, you need to be so self-motivated there, because effectively how I see it in Finland is we account for the lowest common denominator, and that quite often means that we're trying to help people who are very much disadvantaged, and I want to give them the help that they need here, but we're not a monolith. We are different people, kind of thing.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the point that, you know, one approach fits all will not work. And
yeah, I think ultimately to zoom out to like a very much a kind of 1,000-foot view, my biggest concern with integration is that we have the Finnish government and the Finnish people have absolutely beautiful intentions. They want the best. Like they want the best for us here, but the way that they go about it doesn't deliver the best outcomes, in my opinion. And a very big example of that is, I find it's almost insidious. I don't like the thought of it there, but there are conversations about the fact that there is a second class that is being created in Finland. That is not a good immigration strategy. Strive for excellence, I think, in every sense of the matter there. Like, whatever you do, there's nothing wrong with what you do, but you need to put your best efforts into it.
I think that's a perfect conclusion.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you very much. This was the Babel Bureau, a podcast about language policy in Europe. My guest was Heremaia Durie, and we talked about integration training in Finland. I'm your host and producer, Alicia Pfeiffer from the University of Eastern Finland. The music was made with AI. The Babel Bureau is available to listen for free. This podcast is funded by the European Union under the PLURI project. PLURI is an initiative committed to fostering inclusive, multilingual education for domestic and migrant linguistic minorities. For more information, visit our website at pluri-project.eu. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Podcast floor, we're breaking ground.